The Pneumatic Underpinner U300P, manufactured in Italy by Alfamacchine, is needed to assemble pieces of the frame.
It's an underpinner that's particularly apt for the framer who produces frames in a series. In fact, the time to set the machine for a frame is much longer than for other underpinners. The performance time, however, is much faster. Let's see how to set the machine to assemble a frame. I have to assemble, for example, a frame 7 cm wide with 3 wedges. To show how it works better, I mark the positions where the 3 wedges will be inserted. Starting from the outside of the machine, the first wedge is inserted 20 mm from the external side, the second wedge 40 mm and the third 65 mm. I call the wedge closest to the external side of the frame X, the wedge in the middle Y, and the wedge closest to the internal border Z. The position of the 3 wedges has to be set in the 3 tracks, which you are seeing. Every track is marked by a letter which identifies it, X, Z, and Y. I start to set the 65 mm measurement of the Z wedge in the track marked Z. I tighten the lever to fix the setting. I then set the 40 mm measurement of the Y wedge in the track marked Y and fix it. The setting of the X track, or rather the wedge which is closest to the external side of the frame, is slightly more complicated. I firstly lower this lever. Then, holding the spring pressed, I set the position to 20 mm and tighten the lever which fixes the position. I finally release the spring which I'd held pressed during the process. The setting of the wedges is very important on this machine. Let's see it again from another angle to understand it better. These are the 3 tracks which are needed to set the position of the 3 wedges seen from above. Every track is identified by letter, which is stamped next to the millimetered scale. The first track is X, when starting from the left. This track helps to set the wedge which is closest to the external side of the frame. The Z track is in the middle, and the Y track is on the right. I repeat the same settings as before, or rather, I start by setting the Z wedge to 65 mm on the Z track, and I fix it by tightening the lever. I then set the Y wedge to 40 mm and fix it. I have to keep the spring pressed to set the X wedge to 20 mm and let go of it only after I've finished setting it. After having set the position of the wedges, I can continue with the assemblage. The first processes are those of regulating the height of the vertical presser by fixing it to about 2 cm from the frame, and positioning the horizontal presser to about 1 cm from the corner. At this point, however, the functions of the pedal have to be explained. The pedal works with 2 commands. Pressing the pedal halfway makes the horizontal and vertical presses work. Pressing the pedal down completely makes the wedges come out. I will do the following things in this order. 1. I press the pedal to make the horizontal and vertical presses work. Then I press the pedal completely to make the first wedge come out, the X wedge to be precise, which is the one closest to the external side. I press the first part of this spring to change from the X position to the next position, which is Y. In fact, the spring is needed to carry on to the next point where the wedge will be ejected. I lift the pedal to the halfway position and I then press it down completely to make the Y wedge come out. I press the spring completely to change from the Y position to the next position, which is the Z wedge. I lift the pedal again and then press it again completely to make the Z wedge come out. I now assemble the frame completely. "90 mm is the maximum width for mouldings which the machine can assemble. Let's see a second example of a frame where the wedges are placed on top of one another. I mark the 3 positions where the wedges will be inserted on the frame. The X position, which is the one closest to the external border, is at 10 mm. The Y is at 65 mm. The Z, which is where 2 wedges will be stacked, is at 75 mm. In the same way in which you've already seen, I'll set the 3 positions in the respective tracks. I adjust the buffer so that it lowers in the middle of the frame. I make sure that the vertical and horizontal presses are in the right position. I close the plastic protection and start the assemblage. The phases of the assemblage are the same as before, with the only difference being that in this case there are 2 stacked wedges. I'll show therefore only the final phase. This is the phase in which the 2 wedges are stacked. I now completely assemble the frame. For frames with large dimensions, like this one, it's better to be on the inside of the frame during the assemblage. Let's now take a look at the various elements of the machine in detail. You can ask our technician, Eduardo Corso, who is the one doing the demonstration in this video, for any further explanation. The Minigraph 4 underpinner uses special wedges with the following heights: 5, 7, 10, 12, 15 mm. Let's insert, for example, a 15 mm wedge. First, you have to insert the so-called head used for the 15 mm wedges, and you fix it with an Allen key. Every wedge corresponds to a head, which is used to regulate the push of the wedge upwards. Before inserting the stick of wedges, you have to remove the lever which pushes the wedges forwards.
The U300P underpinner uses special wedges with the following heights: 5, 7, 10, 12 and 15 mm.
The wedge storage can hold a maximum of about 220 wedges. After having inserted them, you have to move the lever which pushes the wedges forwards. You can use the provided magnet to remove the wedges which are inside the underpinner. The horizontal presser is needed to push the corner of the frame towards the supporting square and has to be positioned at about 1 cm from the corner. It's very easy to position, you just have to lift it and move it to its new position. When lots of the same kind of frames are being done, you can fix its position with this knob. You have to press the pedal halfway to make the horizontal presser work. The presser remains blocked for the whole time that the pedal stays pressed. You have to release the pedal to release the presser. The plastic protection can be moved upwards or downwards. The vertical position is fixed by tightening the 2 knobs. It can also be regulated horizontally by making it run along the 2 parallel tracks. It is blocked by tightening the 2 knobs, also in this case. The protection can be lifted by lifting it up on its hinge. It has to remain closed during the assemblage. If it's lifted, all the machine's functions will become inactive. This is the valve which disactivates all the operations when the protection is lifted. The machine is provided with 2 buffers, a round buffer and an angular buffer. Both buffers have a felt base so they can fit around the frame's shape without damaging it. The round buffer is better for flat frames. The angular buffer, on the other hand, is better for shaped frames because it fits better to the shape without damaging the frame. The vertical presser's height can be regulated. To change its position, you have to firstly turn this lever because its end fits into one of the presser's holes. The vertical presser can be also regulated horizontally by making it run along the track and fixing it with a special blocking lever. The supporting square can also be regulated in 3 different ways. The 90-degree angle can be increased or decreased slightly. The square's vertical inclination can be regulated by screwing or unscrewing the milled knob. The angle can be increased as to assemble hexagonal and octagonal frames. You just have to fix the bolts in the specific holes which are found on the plate to obtain these angles.
A two-headed compressor with 100-liter sucked air is advised to make the U300P work easily.
The machine, in fact, can be used for series work, where the considerable speed of performance requires a higher amount of compressed air. The tube which comes out of the compressor has to be attached here. 3 tubes come out of the pedal. To facilitate its understanding, I've momentarily put the pedal above the machine. The 3 tubes have to be attached to the 3 holes. The tubes and holes are matched by colour. We have seen that the pedal has 2 controlling positions. By pressing the first position, the horizontal and vertical presses are put to action. By pressing the pedal completely, it makes the wedges come out. This is the pressure regulator. To increase or decrease the pressure, you have to lift the knob and then rotate it either clockwise or anti-clockwise. The variation is shown on the gauge. After having changed the pressure, you have to fix it by lowering the knob again. 2 to 3 atmospheres are sufficient for soft woods. 3 to 4 atmospheres are sufficient for medium hardwoods. 4 to 5 atmospheres are sufficient for hardwoods. The pressure has to be slightly higher when inserting 15mm wedges or stacking wedges. 2 felt-based buffers, or rather an angular buffer and a circular buffer. A 5mm Allen key which is needed to replace the heads and for other adjustments. A magnet to remove the wedges. An instructions manual is also provided in Italian or in other main languages. The pair of extensions provided as optionals allow the frame to be supported during the assemblage. The 2 extensions are to be attached to the machine with the screws provided.
You will find the Underpinner U300P in the catalogue of Rinaldin and on the website www.rinaldin.com.